Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Development Control B Committee B. My name's Cathy Guthrie and I'm the chairman today. May I first of all remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones and videos are turned off when you are not speaking. So those of you who won't be speaking, can you turn your videos off, please? That you do not interrupt the other speaker. Members are reminded not to use the messaging or chat function during the meeting, and I will be using the hands up for declarations of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest. Members are reminded that they should not have alternative communication lines open, i.e. Skype chats, and that if you are contacted by a third party during an application, you should bring this to the legal advisor's attention. That if you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Additionally, you will be invited to speak and ask questions by the chair of the meeting. Please await your turn. We will not be using the hands up function except for declarations of interest, site visits, pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests, lobbying and questions for clarity. And after the first round, I will use the A to Z for the first round when we speak, and after that we can use the hands up function. If you are experiencing poor connection issues, in the first instance, please turn off your camera. If this does not work, please turn off all incoming video. These options are under the 3 dots on the main information bar. Mr. Bird, can you turn off your video, please, because you're not speaking? Thank you. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential items. If you make representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have consented to being recorded. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consented to being recorded by the council and to the possible use of those sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The council, members of the public and press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and press are not lawfully excluded. I'll make the introductions, which is Ian Dupre, our legal advisor, Robert Carmichael, our governance officer, Alex Scott, our case officer, area planning manager John Pateman G, and we have the ward member Councillor Andrew Stringer. And just before I move to the agenda, I do make apologies. There's rather a lot of crashing and banging going on in the background. I will try and mute my mic for most of it, but I've got workers on the roof and everything is right by my window, so I apologise to everyone if there is a noise. So we move on to the agenda. Apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. I'll now conduct a roll call of members just to confirm who's here. So before we start, we don't have any apologies or substitutions. So if you could please respond with good morning and present. So Councillor James Carston.
Present.
Councillor Peter Gould.
Present.
Councillor Cathy Guthrie.
Present.
Councillor Barry Humphreys.
Present.
Councillor Andrew Mellon.
Present, thanks Robert.
Councillor Mike Norris.
Present.
Councillor Andrew Stringer.
Present.
Councillor Roland Warboys.
Present.
And I believe that Councillor Geek has also joined us as well this morning.
Yes, I'm here. I'll be leaving shortly after I've just heard the introductory things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. We are all here.
Right, OK, sorry, that's just thrown me a bit. In what presence is Councillor Geek joining us?
Councillor Geek is the ward members for the second item that will be deferred.
All right, understood. Thank you very much for that clarity. Thank you. To receive declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest by members. So you may use the hands up function. Any? No, there are none. Declarations of lobbying. For this item, are there any declarations of lobbying, which is the first item? I do beg your pardon. No, there are none. Declarations of personal site visits. Again, there are none. Oh, Councillor Mellon. Councillor Mellon, can you explain your
Yes, I could just confirm that I have had a look at the site when passing. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That's fine. And if you can take your hand down, that would be great. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of August, and Robert Carmichael just wants to note an amendment.
Thank you, Chair. There's just one very slight amendment to minute number 153.1. So where it reads, the committee adjourned for a short break between 1 p.m. and 1:10 prior to consideration of application DC 20-00154. After that, I would ask that an amendment be put to say after the break, Councillor Cathy Guthrie retook the chair. That is all, Chair.
Thank you for that. Can I have a proposer, please? To the minutes, hands up, anybody? Yes, Councillor Caston. Hands up, and a seconder, please. And Councillor Norris. Thank you very much indeed. So do we go for a vote, please, on this? A roll call. Thank you. Robert?
Thank you, Chair. So if you could please respond with for, against or abstain. Councillor James Carston.
For.
Councillor Peter Gould.
For.
Councillor Cathy Guthrie.
For.
Councillor Barry Humphries.
For.
Councillor Andrew Mellon.
For.
Councillor Mike Norris.
For.
Councillor Andrew Stringer.
For.
And Councillor Roland Warboys.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That is carried.
So as they've been confirmed, they will be signed at the next practicable opportunity. Thank you. To receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
And before we begin for the schedule of applications, we've received notice from the Governance Officer that item 7B DC 19/01876 Rose, Grove Lane, Elmswell, has been withdrawn from consideration today with my agreement as detailed in paragraph 14.13 of Mid Suffolk Planning Charter. I will now ask the Area Planning Manager, John Pateman G, to provide us with a short verbal update as to why this decision has been taken. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning, members. So we have received an extensive letter from a third party and further correspondence from the parish council in regard to that application. Given the judicial review history of this particular site and this application, and given the content of the third party representation, officers seek withdrawal to have appropriate time to review the correspondence received, as well as consider any amendment necessary to ensure a lawful report is presented to members. A verbal update in respect of these correspondence was considered, but it was not considered to be appropriate given the length of the correspondence received, and it would be a better thing to do to put it all into one report to ensure members have full consideration of the facts of the case. On that basis, it has been sought to be withdrawn at this time.
And Ian, thank you for that, John. And Ian, can you just confirm there is no need for any voting on this matter? Thank you.
Indeed, Madam Chairman, in the Council's planning charter and constitution that provides for this to happen. It does happen from time to time, so it's not necessary for a resolution to be passed adjourning it. That you have agreed with the officers that it be withdrawn from today's agenda, and that's quite appropriate. And I mean, I know one of the ward members is here, but obviously she will have heard that, and that's okay, I assume.
Yes, I will just ask the ward member, you had received that information. Councillor Geek, and apologies earlier, I thought you may not have attended, but I understand your reasoning.
No, I had received, thank you, Chair, and I just wanted to hear it myself in full. So thank you very much. And could I take this opportunity to say goodbye then? Thank you.
Oh, you're not stopping.
I'm not stopping. I simply wanted to hear the reasons
Absolutely.
for the withdrawal. Thank you.
Thank you. And the parish council have also heard this as well. Yes, thank you very much indeed. So we now move on to the Next, item 7A, which is DC 20-01435, land to the south of Gipping Road, Stow Upland, Stowmarket. And Alex Scott, if you'd like to introduce the matter and put the screen forward for everyone to see. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I don't believe that is the site in question, Gipping Road, Stowmarket. I believe the
reading my charts here, I do beg your pardon. It's DC 1905949, which is, I do beg your pardon, I have read it, I'm looking for my charts here, which is obviously at Mendlesham. If you'd like to clear that up, I do apologise. Yeah.
Of course, just for clarity for everybody listening in. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yes, so good morning, Madam Chairman, Vice Chairman, members. The application before you today is application reference DC/19/05949, land to the west of Mason Court, commonly known as Old Engine Meadow, I understand, in Mendlesham. The application follows outline planning permission reference 4242/16, approved by committee in February 2017. For 28 new dwellings. That breaks down to 18 open market dwellings and 10 affordable dwellings. And the application before you today seeks approval of reserved matters, specifically matters of layout, scale, appearance of the new development and the landscaping thereof. And if I may move to the presentation, I will try and present my screen. And hopefully everybody is able to see that. And we'll move to the slideshow. There we are. Hopefully that's clear for everybody looking in. So for the avoidance of doubt, matters for consideration by committee today relate to the orientation and situation of buildings, routes and open spaces, the height, width and length of each building proposed, aspects of the building and place which determine their visual impression, including external built form, architecture, materials, decoration, lighting, color and texture, the treatment of land other than buildings, including screen, fences and walls, trees, hedgerows, shrubs, grass planting, earthworks, hard surfaces and amenity features. Now, by way of this current reserved matters application, the local planning authority are unable, as set out in Article 4(4) of the Act, the Planning Act, unable to reconsider matters including principle, the housing amount, the housing mix, number of affordable units, renewable energy and biodiversity improvements, as set out in that part of the Act. So just to make sure that is clear what we are looking at today. And to the presentation, for the avoidance of doubt, this is the location of Mendlesham within the district and the approximate location of the site within the village itself. This is the site location plan approved as part of the outline planning permission, and the proposal site is outlined in red for you there. These are the planning constraints affecting the site. As you can see, the front part is affected by Environment Agency flood zones 2 and 3. That's this area, these blue areas. Part of the site lies outside of the current local plan settlement boundary, which is defined by this sort of ochre line here. So part inside, part outside. The green hashed lines, they denote public rights of way in the area of the site. The purple line denotes the boundary of the village conservation area, and the coloured buildings indicate buildings which are listed on the national list. Here is a aerial view, wider aerial view of the area of the village, and then a more localized view. This is the latest proposed site layout, revision P23, and a more detailed view of the northern portion for you, which is predominantly where the market dwellings will be constructed. And the market dwellings, as set out in the papers, would be 4 2-bedroom dwellings, 10 3-bedroom dwellings, and 4 4-bedroom dwellings. The public open space and drainage infrastructure are proposed to the frontage, to the Chapel Road frontage of the site. And estate roads and paved footpaths are proposed, linking from the health centre here along the Chapel Road frontage through the site. And there is also a pedestrian access proposed via Mason Court to the centre of the village. And the southern portion of the site is where the affordable dwellings will be proposed, and there are 10 dwellings proposed there. 4 1-bedroom flats, which are these 2 buildings here. So 1 flat at ground floor, 1 flat at first floor. There are 2 2-bedroom dwelling. No, sorry, 1 2-bedroom dwelling proposed, and 5 3-bedroom dwellings proposed in terms of the affordables, and just a bit more detail on the pedestrian access via Mason's Court and connections through Horsefair Close and Duxon Road to the village centre there. This shows the proposed hard landscaping throughout the site, northern portion and southern portion. And then the proposed soft landscaping into 3 areas for you there. And these are the elevations of the dwellings proposed. These are the market dwellings, plots 1 and 8, which is a 4-bedroom detached dwelling. Plot 2, 4-bedroom detached. Plot 3, 3-bedroom detached. Plots 4 and 5, which are 3-bedroom detached. Plot 7, 6 and 7, which are semi-detached, 7 being 3-bedroom, 6 4-bedroom, and plots 12 and 13, which are 2-bedroom detached dwellings. The remainder of the market dwellings, plot 9, 3-bedroom detached, plots 10 and 11 semi-detached 3-bedroom, plots 14 and 15 2-bedroom semi-detached, plot 16 3-bed detached, plot 17 3-bed detached, plot 18 3-bed detached. And the affordable dwellings proposed, we have a 2-bed detached property at plot 19, although attached by the side element there, and plots 20 and 21, which are 3-bedroom semi-detached. Plots 22, 23, 24 and 25 are 1-bedroom flats, 1 on ground floor, 1 above, and there are 2 of these buildings proposed. And finally, plots 26, 27 and 28, 3-bedroom dwellings in a row of 3 dwelling terrace there. And for completeness, these are the garages, so single, double, and a single and double attached together, which are proposed throughout the site. Excuse me. And we have some street scene elevations for you. This at section AA is the main frontage. We then have section B, which is the next layer along. Section C, which is looking in this direction, and then section D. that way, and then section E, which is the frontage of the affordable dwellings to the south of the site. Onto some photographs for you. This is the excuse me, sip of water. So this is the entrance to Mason Court, and the blue arrows denote where we are, just for some reference for you. So that's looking into the site from Duxton Road into Mason Court. Looking up Duxton Road to one side, and then the other side of the Mason Court access. Then inside, in front of the garages, in association with Mason Court, and this is where pedestrians would emerge from the pedestrian access, which is proposed. And looking back down, past the existing sheltered retirement complex, which is Mason's Court, and that is run by the council, I understand. And the garages. And this is a existing pedestrian access from Mason Court to the adjacent housing estate at Horsefair Close, which is one of the possible routes for pedestrians. It will be coming from the site to the centre of the village. And this is a view of the rear of Mason Court, currently undefined, as you will see. And looking the other way, and this is towards where the public footpath, proposed footpath connection will exit the site and link into the existing development surrounding the proposal site. And a site view to the rear of the garages adjacent to Mason Court. And this area here, I understand, is the common room in association with that sheltered retirement housing. And we now move into the adjacent housing estate at Horsefair Close. This is Mason Court in the distance, and the gap here between the existing accommodation and the garage is where pedestrians will be emerging, and one of the possible routes will be this way into Horsefair Close, linking into the existing village centre there, and then just stepping back from that, a wider view of Horsefair Close with Mason's Court in the background, the pedestrian link, one of the possible emerging sites here. And this location was one of the original proposed possible pedestrian accesses through to the site between these two existing dwellings in Horsefair Close. That has not come forward as part of the reserve matter, so that is not proposed currently for a pedestrian access, just to make that clear. We then move from Horsefair Close to the south to Chapel Road to the north, and this photograph is taken from the junction here, looking at along Chapel Road to the west. This is the junction to the health centre, and the site you'll be able to see in the distance in this location. And then the opposite view, looking back along Chapel Road from the point of access to the health centre. And this is the existing agricultural access to the site, currently grassed, but there is a new access proposed along here in this approximate location. And just a final view across the frontage of a site along Chapel Road, leading out of the village to the west. and a photo montage of the site frontage. Finally. And an aerial view. This was drone footage taken as part of the outline application. And that concludes the presentation. Now, the officer recommendation as set out in the papers is the members delegate authority to the Chief Planning Officer to approve reserve matters subject to resolution of technical details with regards drainage, basin design, enclosure and management, and subjects to conditions as set out in the papers. So I hope that recommendation is clear. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alex. It's very helpful having the little areas showing us where the photographs and where your presentation went with the little bits in the corner. I thought that was very useful. Now, if we want to go on to questions for clarity, not debate, obviously, for the planning officer, I'm going to try and keep up with you all. So if you would like to use your hands up, we'll try that this time round. So I'm afraid I'll wait for Councillor Stringer until the end, if you don't mind, but I notice you're there. So if I can go first to Councillor Norris, and I apologise if I get the order wrong. So Councillor Norris first. Hang on, slow down, slow down. So Councillor Norris, and then Caston, and then Councillor Warboys, Councillor Gould. Slow down, everybody. Right. I think that's and then Councillor Humphreys.
I can see Councillor Mellon's hand, Madam Chairman, as well.
Oh, right. Yes. OK. As I say, they don't come up in the order that they've come out in. So let's go first with Councillor Norris, please.
Thank you. Where the pedestrian link came through via Mason's Court, I believe it was slide 24, I didn't observe any footpaths at that point, which would mean that pedestrians would be emerging into an area where vehicles were manoeuvring in and out.
Hang on, Councillor Norris, we just want a question. Where is there a footpath? Not the reason why you're questioning it.
The question then is, are there any footpaths in that area where the link via Mason's Court comes through for pedestrians into the garage area where vehicles would be manoeuvring?
Well, Alex, can you just show the thing rather than debate it, please?
Yes, of course. I'll just present my screen with the photographs again. There we go. Right. OK, so this is.
No, sorry. The previous slide, I think.
Yes, the previous one. Yes.
This one.
Slide 20, that one. Oh, right. Sorry, there is a footpath on the right-hand side. Actually, I can see it now.
Yes.
No, that's fine. You've answered my question. Thank you.
What might help, Alex, is if you put a plan just to show the footways, which might alleviate some of the questions. Could you just put a plan up showing the footways, please?
Yes, I'll try to. Get back to the layout. Yes. Oh. Right, so this is the layout in its entirety. So footways, there will be a proposed paved footway from the access to the health centre along Chapel Road through the site and via the estate roads. And there is then this pedestrian footway proposed, which will go via Mason's Court and linking into the existing footways which are on Mason's Court through to Duxton Road, and this this access through to Horsfairs Close as well, if that's helpful.
Does that help, Councillor Norris?
Yes, that's fine. I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Caston?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Can you take your hands down if you've finished your question, Councillor Norris? Sorry, Councillor Caston, because I'm going to get in a muddle with everyone. Councillor Caston.
Okay, so yeah, my question, I'd just like a bit of clarity. There's two parts to this question, but I'll do them both at the same time because I think they'll be answered both at the same time. So this site has a hybrid SUDS attenuation basin. I haven't come across a hybrid SUDS before. I'd like to know a bit more why it's a hybrid and what makes it a hybrid and why it's a standard, why it's not a standard one. And leading on from that, the flood and water management have come back with a holding objection to this. There's not a huge amount of detail on that in these papers, and I wonder if I could have a bit more detail and a bit more clarity on that as well, please. Thank you.
Okay, if I may, Madam Chairman.
Yeah, please answer it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Well, in terms of the hybrid system, I mean that simply relates to a combination of water retention on the site by way of the attenuation basin, and then controlled discharge into adjacent watercourses, whereas a complete system would simply allow all surface water to drain to ground within the site. So that's the hybrid system proposed. In terms of the local lead flood authority's objection, yes, that is still to be resolved, and part of the recommendation before you is that we delegate power to the Chief Planning Officer, to Mr. Isbell, to resolve these technical details before final approval. So that's part of the recommendation, if that's helpful.
James, can I just come back before you do make a comment on it? I queried the same thing myself in our briefing, and what we've got at the moment in the recommendations at the back and conditions is there's a sort of a tacit agreement that if it's not satisfactory, then it won't go ahead, and it's more detail required. So that's where it sits at the moment.
So to clarify that, this will not be approved unless the Suffolk County Council Flood and Water Management say that it's acceptable. We're leaving it with the planning officer to determine it. If members are minded to approve it, we're leaving it to the lead officer to satisfactorily resolve that issue. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Warboys.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's a document from 2014 that deals with planning of affordable housing, and it talks about the integration of affordable housing. Does that? It's 6 years old, this document. Does the document still apply to this scheme?
Alex or John, can you help us with that one? I'm not quite sure what the relevant.
It's to do with how the.
Do you know what the name of the document was?
Yes. Yeah.
It's I've got the
you talking
link.
About
it's
or something
strategic.
Like that.
It's strategic planning. AHSPD final February 2014.
Right.
It talks about pepper potting.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were on about, pepper potting. Yeah, no, we're not doing that now. Yeah, go on, John.
That's all right. Ultimately, that isn't an adopted document as far as this council is concerned. But in terms of relevant material consideration, there is some weight that can be given to that. I would say, though, it is our general approach not to keep all the affordable housing on one side of the development and put all the market housing in the other because of the need for social integration, and that is a clear planning goal that we have been dealing with for many years now. In this particular case, I don't feel that we have a particular issue. There is a conflict though with pepper potting versus grouping of affordable housing, in that housing associations don't want to take on housing that is split apart all over the estate. They actually prefer groups of houses so that it's easier for them to maintain and manage, and it's easier for them to deal with ownership considerations. So there is always a bit of a tussle about trying to ensure that affordable housing is adequately spread out across an estate, at the same time is reasonable for the housing associations to take on board. But it is a judgment and a subjective one. I think given the size of this particular development, and the way that all the pedestrian routes and the layout integrates with each other, I would not say there'd be an immediate concern that the affordable housing has been segregated to one side and kept out of sight.
John, whilst that's helpful, we're almost into debate on that one. But
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that answers Councillor Warboys' question.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Thank you. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Chair. And in fact, Councillor Warboys has just raised the matter I was going to ask about. But I have another quick one, which is, has the concern of waste services in terms of accessibility for waste refuse collection vehicle been met?
Yes, that has been addressed in the final layout, so that's to their satisfaction now. There were just a couple of plots where the bin pickups were not seen as ideal, but that has now been resolved, to my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Humphreys.
Madam Chair, thank you. It's just a question, just in case I forgot, but it's regarding the strategic housing comment holding objection. How many 2-bedroom houses are there, and how many 1-bedroom flats? I might have got it, and I've just missed it.
Okay, just for confirmation. In terms of the market housing, there are 4 2-bedroom dwellings, and in terms of the affordable housing, there are 4 1-bedroom flats and 1 2-bedroom house.
Thank you.
And Councillor Mellon, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of 3 questions here.
Well, if you can be brief, because they're only for clarity, if you would. Yeah.
In terms of the access, the pedestrian access, and I think that's largely been answered. The parish council had a question about a path from plot 3, which seemed to go nowhere, and I can't work out which one is plot 3, and if we could just have clarity on that one. Secondly, the potential sort of pedestrian connection in the far southwest of the site, which I think Alex showed on a photograph, which was then sort of discounted. It does seem a shame that that hasn't been able to come forward, and I'd like to know why that wasn't possible. And then moving to a separate issue is concern about building on a floodplain. Obviously, we're clearly right in the floodplain 2 and 3 at the north end of the site. And can I just have clarification that we're seeking to address that by remodelling the watercourse? I think that's what I understand from the papers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Alex, can you answer those for us, please?
Yes, certainly. I believe the parish council's concern with the footpath that led to apparently nowhere was in this location adjacent to plot 3. It simply connects to the road and then adjacent to the site. Yes, no. Perhaps the applicant can clarify that a bit further why that is proposed. But I can see their point that it does apparently not lead to anywhere that specific. Now, in terms of the the footpath connection in this location. That was considered at outline stage, but it has not come forward in terms of reserve matters. And I'm not sure of the exact reasons why that is. And perhaps that is a question for the applicant. But there are a couple of options at outline stage, and this has been selected as the preferred route, and that is what has come forward for us today. In terms of the flood zone to the north of the site, the culverting and the attenuation, the drainage has all been proposed in order to mitigate that. But those issues still need to be finally resolved, and again, that goes back to our recommendation that we still need to do some work on this as officers, and the Chief Planning Officer will be managing that. Hopefully that's okay.
Right, who have we got? We now have, I'll ask my question later. So Councillor Stringer, if you'd like to ask your question for clarity, please do.
Yes, could I have clarity on the difference between slide 10 and slide 12? Slide 10 differs from slide 12 regarding potential access to Horsefair Close. And I don't want to get into debate about why we wish to see that stopped up. I'll do that in my speech if that's all right. But yep. I would like to know which plan we're working to, slide 10 or slide 12, because they radically differ.
Okay, yes. Well, slide 10 is the southern portion of the proposed layout. So that is the layout which is proposed. Slide 12.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Can I stop and point out what the difference is?
Of course. Yes, please.
If you look at on slide 10, are we there yet? If you look at where it meets Horsefair Close, there are no gates or any breaks in that boundary. If you go to slide 12, there are 2 gates in it.
Okay, so the slide 12 shows the hard landscaping proposals. So if there are any gates proposed, they would be shown on slide 12.
Right, so can I ask you which one are we working to?
In terms of proposed gates, it would be slide 12, hard landscaping.
Right, okay. So slide 12 shows an access into Horsefair Close.
Right.
Because it shows a gate in the corner.
Shows a gate in the corner, okay.
Well, can you not
Perhaps
see it?
We can have clarity from the applicant when we get to that,
yes, if we could.
Yeah, maybe just like to ask that question again.
It's very important because people have written in about it and objected.
May I come in here? May I have a comment?
Yes, John, I know you've got something to help.
So this is reserved matters in respect of appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, not access, and that includes pedestrian. So access is not before us to determine. Ultimately, the point here is that we can deal with the landscaping and hard landscaping and fencing and so on, but we can't deal with the actual access points in principle. So whatever has been agreed at outline, and ultimately that dealt with that outline in terms of access is dealt with by outline. This reserve matters is not that remit to decide how to access this site. However, there would be, in terms of boundary treatment, if there was a question about the appearance of landscaping on a particular point of a boundary, then we need some clarification about that. That's what we need to find, and we can determine that as necessary.
Right, okay. Does that help, Councillor Stringer? And then we can ask the applicant the further information that you're seeking.
Absolutely. So the question is there or is there not a gate in that boundary treatment?
Alex, can you
we'll keep that
just
one for
point
the
out specifically where we're talking about? Because I'm slightly...
Well, I presume from what Councillor Stringer is saying, it's this location here.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that right, Councillor Stringer? It's that bit there that you're concerned about.
Yeah, correct. Slide
Thanks.
12 shows 2 gates. Yeah. Slide 10 shows no gates at all.
And do we have a visual in a photograph on that particular area? I think we do, don't we?
Yes, we do. I'll just that,
which might help us focus on what we're talking about. There. Is that the one, Councillor Stringer?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, I'd spotted that. In fact, I'd made a note of that. I might ask the question in a minute myself, Councillor Stringer, if you've finished now with your questions. And those, can you take your hands down that have spoken, please? Yeah, I was going to ask a question. Am I correct in thinking that that gate or the footpath is in the ownership of Mid Suffolk District Council? Am I right or am I wrong? I could have misunderstood that in our briefing. Perhaps somebody could help me, please.
Yes, I mean from the application forms, I understand the southern part of the site is within council ownership. Yeah, that's
so. Would that gate, which is the one that Councillor Stringer is referring to, would that gate be in Suffolk County, Mid Suffolk's ownership? I beg your pardon.
That's what the application seems to show, Chair. Yes.
Okay, right.
Yes,
so we've had a bit of a debate on that one, but that was the question. I do have a question on slide 18, if you would, please, which is between the plots 19 to 20. I'm only asking it just for what it is. You mentioned there's a bit of a link. What is that bit of a link? Is it a utility room or something like that between the two? Do we know, or is it again that I should ask the applicant? It's not great relevance, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I believe that there are utility rooms, but perhaps we could ask the applicant for clarity on that. That's what it seems to show on the floor plans. Yeah. Right,
lovely. Right, well, we'll crack on then. We now have the parish council. Thank you to everybody. The parish council representative, and we have Mr. Mike Exley, and our officer will advise you when you're nearly up to your 3 minutes. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, put your microphone on and your video, and we'll have a look and see who you are. Thank you very much. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Did you want to put your video on, or are you happy with that?
No, thank you, Chair. Very kind. Thank you. Mendlesham Parish Council have supported this application now for some 3 years. It represents some of the last land available within our settlement boundary, plus what we know as the old engine meadow, which provides the road access. It does conform to our existing neighbourhood plan and also forms part of our draft revised neighbourhood plan currently in circulation. We knew from the beginning that flooding and road surface water would be a problem, but hoped that with a good drainage plan this could be solved and also correct the bad surface water flooding at the entrance to the health centre. This applicant has always been very cooperative and has attended various open meetings we have held in the village and taken on board many of our concerns as a parish. And we hope that with further cooperation and goodwill all round, that this application can be brought to a satisfactory conclusion and approved. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much indeed. That was very succinct. Now, be gentle with me when you want questions. Does anybody have questions, please? For the parish councillor? No? That's absolutely fine. Thank you for your input, Mr. Exley. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have an objector or supporter, so we now have the applicant, Jamie Bird, and you have 3 minutes as well. If you'd like to put your microphone, and Mr. Exley, if you'd like to take your video off, please, and we'll have Mr. Bird, please.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Jamie Bird and I'm the Land and Planning Director for Fleur Homes. We are an award-winning house builder. We undertake a number of developments across the region where the focus is good design. We are also working with the Sandringham Estate in Norfolk on a portfolio project where the focus, as you might imagine, is quality, and we want Mendlesham to be no different. This isn't our first venture into Suffolk, but it is into Mendlesham. The village is very important to me personally, as I've lived in the village for some 7 years. I have very fond memories of Mendlesham, and this is one of the reasons I persuaded my co-directors to look at this site. And notwithstanding its challenges, we are very keen to move forward with the development of this land. You'll see the application has been generally well received locally, and we have addressed many of the points raised by statutory consultees. In terms of the points raised by councillors, I'd like to just comment as follows. In terms of surface water, we've worked hard to design a system that works and addresses both the needs of the site and those experienced locally. These obviously will be addressed by the Chief Planning Officer should you approve today. Also, in terms of the footpath in front of plot 3, this can be removed if of concern to councillors. It would appear it was a hangover from an original design. In terms of the footpath to the south of plot 28 and nearest the historic pedestrian access to Horsefair Close, we can ensure that there's a gravel margin and remove any sense of footpath there. The gates that are shown, we think, are actually, again, a historic leftover from an original drawing. So again, just to be clear, those gates will be removed and fenced off. There is no access. In terms of the point made between plots 19 and 20, again, actually, there isn't a formalised link there. It is actually just gates. So the drawing needs to be amended, but that roofscape shouldn't be shown. So it is just a pedestrian sort of gateway link, a fence link between the two. So fundamentally, the site is deliverable, and we are keen to get started, having discharged a number of the outline planning conditions. And this obviously reserved matters application is the most significant. Your officer recommends approval, and I hope you'll support his recommendation and approve the application today. Obviously very happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. That's very helpful. Now, questions for Mr. Bird, but I would point out that he does seem to have picked up on some of the questions that we did earlier, for which I'm grateful, and hopefully that resolves some of the issues that we had there. So, Councillor Mellon, you've put your hand up for a question. Would you like to ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it's just another question for clarification on the flooding risk. Everybody seems to think that this is about the surface water from this site and adjacent, but the Environment Agency floodplain is to do with water coming down from upstream, not from this site. So can you just give me a little bit more clarity on what you're planning to do to deal with that?
Can I just ask a question before Mr. Bird answers that question, and I'll ask that question of John Pateman G. It's not up to this development to sort out what's coming from upstream. Am I correct in that, John?
This is difficult because obviously we have to deal with an application and the control of that application, and we are dealing with other authorities that would deal with the management and responsibility of anything upstream. So I would probably say no. There's nothing we can pursue in that respect.
Yeah, because I think that's putting Mr. Bird on the spot over something that's out of theirs and our hands. Having thought about it, Councillor Mellon, would you agree with that?
I'm just thinking back, Chair, to a previous application that we discussed on the other side of the road, where there was a long debate about the fact that we were going to build on the edge of the floodplain. Now here we're actually building in the floodplain, and I just need to sort of have a bit of clarity about how we're planning to deal with it.
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I come in, it wouldn't be wrong to invite Mr. Bird to answer that question as best he's able to, as long as you.
Yeah. I just didn't think it was fair to put him on the spot for something that was outside his control. But Mr. Bird and Ian Dupre's input, thank you for that. And Mr. Bird, could you pass comment, please?
I can. Obviously, part of the original outline, there was extensive modelling, hydraulic modelling undertaken of the watercourse. And our proposals, in fairness, at that outline stage, they the modelling was generally undertaken to deal with, because of its historic nature, was to deal with the 1 in 50-year storm. Now, formerly being a resident of Mendlesham and knowing it as I do, and obviously often going to the health centre, I do know that in front of the health centre, periods of heavy rainfall, it does get very flooded, and there are obviously large puddles there. So the way that we approached this application was to immediately move to design the scheme to achieve the latest standards, not being asked to do so, but to achieve the latest standards required by the Lead Local Flood Authority, which is achieving the 1 in 100-year storm requirement, plus climate change. So that's the way the scheme has been designed. So attenuation basin, the profiling of the ditch have all been modelled to reflect those latest standards. The questions and the holding objection that's come from the Lead Local Flood Authority principally relates to the implementation of a management plan for the construction of the attenuation basin at the point of the point at which it's constructed, i.e. the first thing that's built on site, so that it is ready and able to deal with those surface water events, and obviously is there established and available to accommodate any drainage once the scheme is obviously up and running in terms of construction. So it has all been hydraulically modelled. We didn't quite make committee. We've had a meeting with the Lead Local Flood Authority and your officers, hence why obviously the matter has been delegated to the head of planning to deal with post this committee meeting. But I think, and I hope that addresses your question. There is one point I'd just also like to make that I meant to mention in my speech just very quickly, which is about affordable housing mix. The mix that was set out by Alex Scott originally wasn't quite accurate, in that Alex suggested there was only 1 2-bed, the 4 1-beds and 1 2-bed. There are actually 4 2-beds and 4 1-beds. So and 2 2-beds. So that is the actual mix. There are more 2-beds than Alex was first suggesting.
And I allowed you to do that. You did have an extra 30 seconds that you hadn't used up earlier. So I think that was a very useful thing, because we need accuracy, and thank you for correcting on that. So Councillor Mallon, I think hopefully that's satisfied your inquiry a little better.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for letting me pursue that.
No. I mean, I did all of it in the briefing, and I didn't get as much as you got out of it. So we didn't have Mr. Bird there either, obviously. Councillor Caston, you have a question, if you would, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Yeah, it's following on from Councillor Mellon's question on the drainage. So this is a hybrid SUD system. So as well as containing the water, it attenuates into the stream. Do you have the figures on the release rate of that hybrid SUD system compared with what the runoff would be normally off the site now? Are we reducing, staying the same, or are we increasing the runoff into the stream?
I can't give you the specific numbers, but I know that the requirements of the Lead Local Flood Authority and the design of the system is to meet the runoff rate of the field as it is. So it is to ensure that it is no more than is currently experienced. But what we are doing as part and parcel of these proposals is endeavouring to alleviate the localised flooding that often occurs in front of and around the entrance to the health centre. So we are looking to improve the situation as it's currently designed, but it does meet the requirements of the Lead Local Flood Authority in that way.
May I come in on that, Chair?
Yeah. James, can you take your hand?
Just to add to that, the Suffolk County's requirement is actually a 10% increase in terms of improvement to any particular existing capacity. So therefore, the expectation would be that new development would, in terms of its runoff, would be 10% better, e.g. you would reduce the runoff by at least 10%, because that would help alleviate any flood issues. So their actual standard is a 10% improvement. It's not just a status quo, it's an improvement by 10%. That's their current guidance to what they work to.
Thank you very much for that. I think all those questions were very valid and very clearly answered. Hopefully everybody's happier with the outcome of that. And so we now come on to the ward member, Councillor Stringer, if you'd like to tell us about the site, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll tidy up a couple of bits before I go. In between outline and detail, there has been a little bit of work carried out in this area, one of which was to a culvert to actually alleviate some of the flooding, and one of the things done in between was a extension to parking provision at the health centre, which has been most gratefully received, because Mendlesham Health Centre has been dealing with Bacton's health over the COVID period. Also, to clear up about the flooding, where it says 49.7 metres on slide 8, that is where there was a blockage a couple of years ago, which has now, all that ditch has now been dredged out, which has actually improved the lot of Chapel Road in terms of flooding. Just to show you how it's all interlinked. If I could also have the picture of Horsefair Close and the two driveways, that would be really helpful, because I'd just like to quickly go over why we quashed the idea of an access into Horsefair Close. It was because under the right to buy, the two houses either side were sold, and Mid Suffolk gave those people the right to park on that driveway, which meant actually if you did allow people to walk in and out of that area, they would quickly get run over and they'd have to wiggle in between cars, and the whole thing was a nightmare. So everyone agreed right from the outset that we would seek an alternative entrance, pedestrian entrance, other than the one from Horsefair Close, and the one proposed is more central, and it wides off into two directions and is far more preferable to a vast majority of residents in Mendlesham. This particular site is a major piece in the jigsaw for Mendlesham's built future. A third of the site has been inside the 1998 local plan, and the whole of the site is in the draft joint local plan, as well in the draft allocations policy for the Mendlesham neighbourhood plan. This is a very high quality development on the northern exposed edge of this parish. So the fact that the buildings are very high quality is really good in this location, because this will be an entrance gateway site into the village. There's also, you may have spotted, there's a need for this substation in the field next door. That's because nearly all of these houses will have air source heat pump heating systems. So sustainability has been a key as we've been going through trying to deliver this site. And as I said earlier, we've already had some work done onto the watercourses. Frankly, my life and Mendlesham's life would be an awful lot better if every developer acted like this one in terms of bringing all their ideas to us early. Frankly, Mendlesham needs this to deliver its housing numbers, and I would urge all of the committee members to uphold the recommendation of our officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Stringer? No, Andrew, you've got off lightly. So we now move to debate. If I can go through the A to Z, if I can do it that way first time round, and then if you want to put up proposals after we've all spoken, including myself, then we can look at that. So who wants to come in? I think John might want to just alter a recommendation, a couple of things on the recommendation. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah,
and then members might not have to debate it. Yep.
Yeah, I think given what I've heard, if I may come in, this is unusual to do this, but I think it may save a little bit of time. If I may add a condition to the current officer recommendation, and that condition being, notwithstanding details on the boundary to the south, that there shall be no gate leading to between number 35 and 36 Horsefair Close. That therefore should allow us to ensure that that is a fence only along that boundary treatment. I hope that would be acceptable if I ensure that we don't have a gate that leads to the path between number 35 and 36 Horsefair Close, that we secure continued fencing instead. And that was obviously picks up on the landscaping boundary treatment that was questioned earlier, and possibly resolves the access point by default.
I think that's very sensible to do that. And as we go through the debate, I'm sure members will either comment or approve it. So I'm happy at this point for you to add that so that members can debate. So let's go round first of all. Councillor Caston, would you like to open the debate for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So my major concern with this is the floodplain, the drainage issue. It seems to me, Councillor String has said that work's been done. A blockage has caused more of a floodplain there than maybe the modelling suggests, if that's correct. We have to be really careful with flooding. It's destructive. It pollutes, and it's terrible for people. It would be a failure to allow planning to building to be carried out on a floodplain. I am happy to leave this to the officers as delegated authority on this. I know they'll take it very seriously. Apart from that flooding issue, as long as we can get something that we know is not going to flood within a few years of building and cause all those problems, I'm happy with this these reserve matters. Thank you. Thank you,
Councillor Caston. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is an application of considerable merit. There's a good provision of affordable homes. It's supported by the parish. I think Councillor Caston is right. Really, the only hesitancy is around the flooding, but I'm confident that the officers will ensure that the required scheme is agreed before the development takes place. But I think this is a very good development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Councillor Humphreys.
Madam Chair, thank you. It's really nice actually to get an application where everybody seems to be in agreement for once. So well done, including the local councils, which is fantastic, and the people we should listen to. I've got no real concerns with this at all. I agree with the additional condition with regards to the footpath 35 to 36 Horsecare Close. I think that's an appropriate thing to do, and we should add that if we go forward. The housing mix is fine. The footpaths, again, that's been dealt with. And in terms of flooding and also the surface drainage, that's already a condition for the senior planning officer to deal with. So it's already in there. And obviously it wouldn't go ahead unless that was up to the right standard. So I've got confidence in our officers. I've got confidence in the conditions. And I've got confidence in the fact that that will be dealt with before planning begins, or building begins, sorry. So yeah, it's a good application, and I'm minded to support it as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Norris. Councillor Norris, are you there? Do you want to say something?
Sorry, my laptop decided to go slow.
Don't worry.
Yeah, no real concerns. I did have one or two questions, but they've already been answered. I'm much reassured by the applicant's presentation and by the ward members' support for the application. So I will probably be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just looking. Councillor Warboys, if you would, please.
Yes, I think I can echo Councillor Stringer's work. There's been a lot of good consultation between Fleur Homes and Mendlesham Parish Council. They've produced a scheme that appears to keep everyone happy. I think in looking again at what it says about affordable housing and the design, I think visually they're tenure blind. I think the facades of the buildings, sort of of the different housing schemes, are integrated to each other, and apart from the positioning, I think that they will be well integrated. Flooding, and the footpath issue seems to be resolved. I am assuming that there's some recommendations about biodiversity enhancement and the recommendations from Peter Chesnell about water energy and resource efficiency have been reserved. But apart from that, then I've got no further comments.
Thank you for that. Councillor Mellon?
Thank you, sorry.
Your go. Sorry, I decided to put you out of order to confuse you.
Thank you for that. Yes, obviously, largely in support of this application. Just to pick up on the point that Councillor Warboys just made, and I was going to make the same point. Peter Chesnell on page 73 and 74 of the bundle has made some suggestions in terms of conditions, and in fact he's recommending refusal if those are not put in place. Now we have got, I think, 8 or 9 pages of conditions in the officer's recommendation, but I can't quite see where the environmental concerns are coming through, and maybe John Pateman-G can sort of just clarify on that, but it would be nice to see them sort of in there amongst the other conditions. Thank you.
I think one of the issues is we're at reserve matters, and I think John will explain it in a little greater detail for us.
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, that is where we are. Ultimately, you're dealing with today is scale, access, appearance, and landscaping. You're not, and layout for that matter, you're not dealing with how environmentally friendly the property should or shouldn't be. That needs to be a matter of the outline planning permission. And you know, for example, if you take solar panels, you know, can you refuse a reserve matters application because it fails to have solar panels in the mix of the proposal? Well, the lack of something doesn't offend appearance, it doesn't offend layout, scale, or access, or landscaping. You know, there's nothing to be judged there because it's just not being proposed. If we wanted it to be in the mix for judgment, it needed to be controlled to be there via the outline planning permission as part of the principle of allowing that development to take place on this land. You know, there is no expectation when an outline is granted of the developer owner to come forward with those provisions because they haven't been set out in the outline application. So I appreciate my colleague in respect of his recommendation, but in planning terms we have to appropriate that to the right stage, and that would either be an outline application or a full application, not a reserve matters which only deals with the issues of appearance and landscaping, layout, and so on. And in this particular case, access has already also been dealt with at outline level as well, so we have less to deal with in respect to this reserve matters application.
Thank you, John, but I think it's fair to say that since matters have changed over several years, and that's where people are getting confused as to when and where these sorts of things come up. And yes. I know you sent me a very helpful aid memoir, which might prove beneficial to all members to be sent out at some stage on that. But I understand Councillor Mellon's views. And probably when this was set up in the first place, we didn't have the availability to do that. So hopefully this explains it a little bit better. Yeah, I
will pick that up. Just to mention that the problem here is that in 3 years we've had a shift, and part of that is climate emergency and so on, but we have had a shift in emphasis, and of course we are now picking up in outline more things that we should be picking up, which is biodiversity improvements to a degree, renewable energy to a degree, and even housing mix as well in terms of market housing mix. Now you will see on any outlines hopefully that come forward to you from now or for the last year at least, they will have conditions in respect of those issues being recommended to members. The problem we've got at the moment is that 3 years ago we weren't looking at those issues as high as we are now, and we are now dealing with the reserve matters of those outlines that were granted 3 years ago. It will be another year or so before you get to see the reserve matters come forward that have been picking up on the outlines that we are dealing with today.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. And I can see Councillor Mellon nodding his head, and I'm in agreement with him too on the issues that are changing minute by minute, as we know. Right, thank you for that, Councillor Mellon. I think that's everybody who's spoken. Myself, I don't know what that was. Not me. Myself, yes. When I first read the papers, I did sort of double takes on several of the things, holding objections, all sorts of things. Again, Councillor Caston and others have brought up about the flooding, but when you hear what's really been going on in the background and what conditions we've got put in place, it covers everything very nicely. I really do hope this is a good exemplar of a development when it goes forward, because I will be supporting it. So if anyone wants to make a recommendation, and no need to speak any further. Whoops, I see Councillor Humphreys. I did see that one, and Councillor Caston. So all the other councillors and Councillor Stringer, it looks like we've got something positive here. Councillor Humphreys.
Madam Chair, yeah, indeed, I believe we do. I would like to move for recommendation of approval with conditions laid out on page 35 and 36, and the additional condition brought in by Mr. Payton G regarding the no gate on the footpath between 35 and 36 Horse Care Close. If that can be added, then I'd move approval.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Caston?
Yes, happy to second that.
Right, in that case then, may the committee officer do a roll call on the decision of
Madam
that recommendation?
Chair, just briefly, if I may, just for the benefit of anyone who might be watching this and comparing and checking up things, just Mr. Carmichael, if you can confirm I've got this right. Obviously, this is an 8-member committee, which normally includes for full purposes Councillor Andrew Stringer, but under this council's rules, which are not universal all over England, a ward member who happens to be on the committee is allowed to speak, as she would be if they weren't on the committee, but they do not vote. And it's normally made very obvious when they're in the council chamber because they sit apart, but when we're online that can get lost. So if that Mr. Carmichael, I've got that right for this committee, haven't I?
That is correct, Mr. Dupre, and that will be noted in the minutes as well.
Thank you.
For clarity for all.
And there are other councils that do work on this basis as well. I happen to know one or two, but it's a very valid point for everybody to listen. Yeah, thank you. So roll call away, please.
Thank you, Chair. So if members could please respond as earlier with for, against or abstain. Councillor James Carston.
For.
Councillor Peter Gould.
For.
Councillor Kathy Guthrie.
For.
Councillor Barry Humphreys.
For.
Councillor Mike Norris.
For.
Councillor Roland Warboys.
For.
And Councillor Mellon.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That is carried.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I carried.
Thank you very much for everyone. There are no further matters that we need to discuss. I don't believe we've got any site visits planned, Robert. So on that basis, I close the meeting. Thank you.